Hello and welcome to another episode of Top Flight Unfiltered. Now, I said unfiltered, but not triple X. That's X-rated, those shorts. So welcome, Cameron, for joining us. And,
I just went.
and welcome, Big Red.
I looked at you. I was like, I stared at you. I was like, oh, what are you up for?
I was staring at them shorts as well. And yeah, welcome.
Speed training, so dedication straight here after. So
yeah, well done. Cheers, you made it. And yeah, cheers for Big Red for coming. You get Big Red on Unfiltered.
Big Red getting my street name, Anna.
I wasn't happy when I came in and everyone's calling Rich, and I'm like, who's Rich?
Who's this?
I don't know anyone called Rich. All I know is Big Red.
I know.
It's the only man I know.
Maybe we just throw it back, Big Red. We've got Big Meeks, so Big Red's ready to step up the mark.
Yeah, that's remind us of actually two of our mates who, when we met and they were introducing their respective wives or girlfriends or whatever at the time for the first time, they introduced each other by the first names, and everyone was like, "Who? I didn't know that was your first name."
Yeah,
quality. So yeah, what we're going to chat about this time is we're looking at barriers. So we've seen it a few weeks ago now, the sub 4 attempt inverted commas by Faith Kipyegon.
Yeah,
and we've seen a few world records fall. So yeah, we're going to just talk about barriers in athletics and about our own barriers, anything that you've really gone for. So in terms of, did you have any PB, or you still got a PB where you're thinking I wanted to be under that time because that's like a barrier? So for me, 4 minutes for the mile, I would have theoretically done it because of my 1500 time, but I didn't actually break 4. So you always want to go, oh yeah, I wish I broke 4 for a mile, because then I could say I was a sub 4 miler. You have broke 4 minutes, yeah?
I've not broke 4 minutes.
Oh, you haven't?
No, so I haven't run I haven't run a mile for 10 years now, outdoors. Yeah.
I remember
Yeah, 10 years.
When I was 20, Oxford.
I did that, yeah, I did do that. I'll be honest, I was still curing a 3-day hangover, because it was the same week I got back from European into 23s. And I felt terrible in that race. Somehow I got brought up into conversation the other day with someone. But anyway, the previous year I ran in Letterkenny. They had a mile race there. They were trying to break 4 minutes for the mile for the first time. And they did break it, in fairness. I got sort of pipped by a Kenyan and a really good Mexican guy, actually. But didn't quite get there. I ran at indoors, I ran at Lee Valley last year. And yeah, just missed out.
Dude, why are you bleeding?
Well, actually,
your nose is bleeding on the side there. I'm sorry to interject in your conversation here. It's just pretty striking when Cam's oozing blood.
We've got no tissues.
Anyway, back to your 4 minute mile attempt.
How does that happen anyway? Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to scratch myself.
I mean, hopefully you still got off of 3:37. You should have done it, but it's when you're speaking to somebody outside of the immediate circle of athletics, and you say oh well, I'm a middle distance runner, rather than if you've done marathons or half marathons, and they go oh, if you broke 4 minutes for the mile, and you're like, oh,
yeah, I mean,
quite say that. Yeah, I guess you must be similar there.
Yeah, the 4 minute mile is it's one of the most noticeable barriers in the sport for just the people who maybe aren't invested in the sport. But everyone knows the history of the mile and Roger Bannister, and I guess when you're talking to your average Joe about athletics, they would relate to that if you said, oh well, I ran a mile under 4 minutes. Whereas if you say to them, oh, well, I ran 3:43 for 1500, be like, what does that mean, mate? So, yeah, for me, it would have been a sub 4 minute mile. To be honest, though, at the time when I was in the sport, I wasn't hell bent on it, to be honest. No, but now when I look back, I'm like, I wish I'd pushed that more. I wish I'd actually actively looked for mile races, but there wasn't many about at all. And then you think when you do get one, great British weather, it would always be absolutely minging. So, yeah, I never really had a crack at the distance, to be honest. So
I didn't really do it. And then it's all I guess it's the arbitrary numbers, which probably will funnel us into the whole Faith Kipyegon thing and other barriers in athletics as well. But you get attached to an exact number and an exact distance. So a sub 30-minute 10K is another one that people can relate to, because half an hour 10K, or a sub-hour half marathon, the sub 2 hour marathon.
Yeah.
And then after that, it starts becoming a bit more contrived, doesn't it? Like our sub 8 minute 3K, but it's not like an Olympic distance. Maybe a sub 8 3K if it's on the back, but it's just an arbitrary number. It doesn't really matter. And now it's like all the world records are obviously incredibly hard, but it feels like some of them, if it's next to a whole number, like
That's all it
it
is.
sort of means,
Yeah.
like it captures the imagination easier, but it's not necessarily more impressive. Like to run 3:25 for 1500 is obviously that would be one of the hardest records on the books, but it maybe doesn't. It's not as catchy as
A sub 2 marathon.
else, a sub 2
And that's
marathon.
the one that jumps out for me at the moment, like the sub 2 marathon in a race. And I think you look at, and again, it's just because when you're looking at the world records and we're prepping for the pod, I'm reviewing records and where things are at and in the sport and who's around that, who could maybe get to them. And, you know, I was looking at them and thinking, well, the sub 2 hour marathon is the one that I think would feasibly go soon. But then I was like, well, actually, you know, now the current world record holder sadly isn't around, then, well, who is going to take that on? And I don't know whether the crop is there to do that.
Yeah, I think the thing with the 2 hour marathon, the reason why that was the 4 minute mile, it's because they were going for it for so long, and there was like decades of history of the mile world record coming down and down and not getting close. And you had the whole British Empire thing at the time where they managed to get up to the top of Everest and the mile within, you know, a year of each other. So they were like big feats of humanity. And then actually, when you look at it now, more people have gone to the top of Everest than have ran a sub 4 minute mile. So it just tells you how hard the sub 4 minute mile actually is. But then the thing with them, we're looking for like round numbers, and the 2 hour for the marathon, you can make huge improvements just by actually running the marathon distance. So if you think of a big city marathon, you've got all the corners. Sometimes they've painted a line on, but I don't know how accurate that line is for it being the shortest line, because you've got to measure it to the curb. And, you know, like the easiest way to run a faster marathon is to just run a marathon and not run 26.4 something instead of 26.2. So that could easily shave like a minute off, which is one of the massive easy wins in the Kipchoge project, was just getting to actually run as close to the actual distance as possible rather than running way over. And then it was taking out the acceleration decelerations. So, you know, you don't have to slow down and faff on at a water station. They'll just pass in the water. And then it was have the pacemakers rotating in and out to keep them on a much steadier pace rather than going up and down. So there was easy wins in the marathon. I think when we segue that into the Faith Kipyegon effort, I think it was totally unrealistic. They were trying to hang the whole thing on the 4 minutes as an arbitrary figure, but it was just totally out of reach and totally unrealistic. And anybody who doesn't really understand 1500 meter running or mile races knows that the only way Kipyegon was going to do that is if it wasn't athletics as we know it. So they already try to cheat by like adjusting the clock. So it's 4 minutes for a mile. The gun goes, that signifies the start of the race. You finish when your torso crosses the line. So they chopped, I don't know if you know about this, but they chopped a half a second off a time because they fired the gun, but then they waited for it across the line to start as like a rolling start. So that's not athletics anyway. That's not within the rules. And that's because if she had ran 4:00.2, they wanted to like artificially bring it inside. So that was a bit rubbish. There's no way she was going to be anywhere near it right, because they could put male pacemakers in so that she had slightly more advantage of having somebody there the whole time and a little bit of wind advantage. But let's face it, if you're on the track and it's a windless day and you've got them wave lights and you had a pacemaker, it's not, I've seen so many world records from people who front run, it's not going to make that much difference. It's negligible, maybe like half a second max. There was no way it was going to take like 7 seconds off. The only way that was going to happen is if the shoes were just totally ridiculous, like by so much that it just wasn't athletics at all. So yeah, I think it was just totally unrealistic. It was a bit of a waste.
I actually think that Kipyegon is better in a race situation.
Yeah, she's a great racer.
Yeah, and I think you watched it. I don't know. Did you watch it, Cam?
Watch what?
The Kipyegon.
I thought you were
Exactly.
talking about because you're talking about racing.
No, sorry.
Did
Did you watch her sub 4 attempt?
Yeah, I watched.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I thought she looked uncomfortable early on. I thought at a K there was telltale signs. She went through in round about the 2:31 mark, I think, and she looked like she was working. And I think
the pace was too hot early on.
Yeah.
Basically. So
I think as well she doesn't have she's not quick enough over 800. I don't think at this stage, or whether she ever will be, to run sub 4.
Right. What did you run for 800 meters?
1:52.
Right. So again, it's not just to bring it back to us, but like we actually know about middle distance running because we did it for like 20 years, right? And I ran 1:51.5 and 3:42, which would be the equivalent of just breaking 4 for the mile. You've ran what, 1:49?
Yes.
And 3:37, right? So you haven't quite done it. So if you were to look down Power of 10, there's not many people who've ran slower than me at 800 meters and also broken 4 for a mile, right? I'm one of the slower milers at 800. That's just because it wasn't my strength. So to think that Kipyegon, who's ran 1:56, 1:57, was going to break 4 minutes for a mile, to me is just nonsense. She would have to be at worse a 1:51, 1:52, 800 runner to do it, because no athlete, male or female, has basically ran slower than 1:52 and also broken 4 for a mile. So it's just totally
The
unrealistic.
thing is, though, could she run 1:53? I think she probably could. I think she could break the world record for 800.
Well, she ran.
But I think the point is that to break 4 minutes for the mile, maybe you probably need to have you don't need to, but it would help to have an 800 meter PB of 150 or quicker, really.
So she ran a K, didn't she, though, and ran like 2:29, something
Yeah.
like that. So it was so far off that it was just unrealistic.
I think when you're running, when you're running, you have to run to your strength. So you were just talking there about how she's better in a race scenario. Well, the reason that is because she actually goes through 800 about 3 seconds slower, 3 to 4 seconds slower, like 62s. She went through in about 2:03, I think, at Eugene. Was that right? 2:03?
Yeah, and then picked.
Or was it slightly faster?
Yeah.
I think it was about.
I don't think it was
let's
much
just say
quicker.
around
Spot on, though, because that's like 61,
but
202,
just below the red line.
340.
Yeah.
And when you're depending on what your training is, if you kind of have to tailor your running to the way that suits your training as well and your physiology, right? And if she's running and she's just balancing and just riding that red line, running at 2:03, 2:04, when she gets that bell lap, you kind of want your lactate to peak at a certain point in the race. You don't want it to peak after a K. You want it to peak as close to the finish as possible.
Yeah.
And if you're riding that red line by going ever so slightly slower and then finishing like a train, that was probably why you're saying she's able to race a lot better than what she would run the sub 4 mile, because it was just under that red line.
Yeah.
And I think probably maybe, I don't know whether her training can move on from there. I'm sure it can, because she's getting better, and she probably would get even closer to her at some point, because it's been proven to be like that anyway. It just means that if she was to get closer, she probably would have to go through in maybe 61, 62s rather than 60s for now.
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking 400s, whereas this is like quarter miles, which is a very slightly further, but again, that makes like half a second difference pretty much each lap. Yeah, I think obviously it was a massive publicity stunt, but they probably should have. The thing that was a little bit disappointing is like they set her up to fail, which as an athlete you feel a bit like, why did you do that? So there would have probably been better just building it around the one wanting to see how much she could break the world record. So if they'd done it like that and said, this is the world record and we're going to give all this tech and we're going to do this, that and the other within the rules to say how much we can break the record by, we're probably, as traditionalists, probably still would have been that happy. But in the same way as the Breaking 2 project did it.
Wouldn't have got the buzz, though?
No, she might have, yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't have
So she might have ran a 4:04, 4:05, and then they could have started the whole like, oh, but is it possible that she could have ever like get to the sub 4 minute mark? They could have started that hype afterwards. I just think, yeah, for me, they set her up to fail, and the only way it was going to happen is if it was totally contrived.
I think, yeah, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, obviously I understand what where you're coming from to a degree, but I think the whole concept behind it was good to watch. I enjoyed it. Everyone was skeptical about whether it would happen or not, and I thought that it brought a new perspective to the sport, and a bit like the Kipchoge event. I mean, Kipchoge didn't do it the first time. Obviously, I feel like running closer, he was a bit closer to the barrier in terms of
and he also he whacked 2 minutes off the world record though when he did it as well.
Yeah, but it was, it was fun to watch. And I think the sport kind of needs new events which are kind of innovative, and it's not always about championship running, and it's not always about chasing times in a sim gender race, for instance. I enjoyed watching it. I was skeptical about whether it would happen or not, but I think it's that quote, isn't it, in the Hunger Games? Hope is greater than fear. Is that right? Hope trumps fear. Is that what they say?
I can't remember, but it does sound something like that.
Like it's from.
I don't know, but Cameron bought into what you're saying here. Like, keep talking, keep going.
So, like, the hope of it happening was like way out. Like it trumped it not happening.
Yeah.
Like the fear of it not happening.
Yeah.
And I think everyone kind of like wanted to see whether a female could do that, and I personally wanted to see how close you could get to it. I thought you got a little bit closer.
I did as well. I thought I thought a 4.2.
The beauty
I
of running,
thought a 4.2 was out there, and like people were asking me, and I've said this before about sporting events, and this is echoing what Cam's saying here. I think when you get people that have no interest in the sport at all, so I gauge just by like people that I work with, there's not many people that are interested in athletics. When they ask me about a sport and event, then I know, that's got the public's interest.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of them that were like, they didn't know her name, but they're like, do you think that lass will break 4 minutes for a mile? And I'm like, oh, you want to talk about this, dear? Great. And I like that. And it,
shines a light on it,
it sparked public interest. And it got, I was bought into the event. I was wanting to see how quick she would go. I thought she'd go quicker. I thought she'd go around about the 4.2 mark, but
yeah.
hey.
I tell you what though, I think that now it would be nice to even see like another female athlete have a go at it, and I think that if you watch the 5K the other night, I think, I'm not joking, like the shape that Beatrice Chevet's in now, I think she could be very.
I'm 100. I'm all in with this as well.
I mean, if you've seen her kick away from the rest of the field, like it was. I think she could get. I'm not saying she would do it. I don't think it would happen right now. I'm not saying it won't happen in the future, because I think in the future, the way the technology is going, I mean, all you need to do is look now. What the latest thing that's come out is broccoli sprouts. Have you seen it?
No.
So broccoli sprouts is the new thing what athletes are starting to take. So because it basically, you take it for a prolonged period of time. Like, so let's say it may mimic. It basically, there's a compound in it. I can't remember the name of the compound. It begins with an L.
This is a vegetable, yeah?
Yeah, broccoli sprouts, not broccoli.
Right,
broccoli sprouts, just when it's sprouting, right? You can buy them online and things. You can't usually get them in the supermarkets. My mum actually buys them and she eats them anyway. Basically...
Got Mama break 4 for a mile.
She's the next thing. Maybe I should get my mum on the show and see if she wants to have a go at it. But anyway, she... no, that's the next thing. So and it lowers the lactate levels in training, but over a prolonged period of time. So it's not like bicarb where it just it buffers the lactate completely. It helps with a lot of different processes in cell signaling, and that's the next thing that people are starting to take. And I think what you'll find over the next few years is that athletes are now pushing the barriers more and more. Now people are in the mindset of trying to think of the next big thing that they could do, the next bit of the way they could push the barriers, a bit like what happened maybe, let's say, for the Oregon project. I'm not going to go into that, but like that was the same. Like they were always looking for the next big thing. And I think that the average athlete never, even 5-6 years ago, they weren't doing that in sport. Whereas now it's, I wonder what else I was sat there when I was in Albuquerque, I was thinking, I wonder what like natural compounds there are, or natural plants there are that may also help with this. Because so the only reason I found out about this was that, Algren, the guy who just broke the 5K, he's sponsored by them, I think, because he's on their Instagram page and he takes it.
Oh, is he?
And I seen Hannah Nuttall was taking it in front of more. Like she put a story on saying it's called Novio or something, I think.
Right.
Saying like, let's see what this is all about. So I was researching on ChatGPT, as you do, like how could I create that myself at home? And you probably could actually, if you blended up some broccoli sprouts, and put a bit of lemon in there to keep the pH level acidic. And yeah, you could do that at home yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's always going to be these. Once you've got, well, we had the podcast with you, Collagen, with Dr. White, and that was, what his message was: you've got to get the 99.9% right. Firstly, you've got to get the training right, you've got to get the rest, the recovery right, all them things, and then the supplementation side of that. Them things are like the proper icing on the cake. And for me, they're all tiny little gains that you could get at the top. So you're definitely going to get some progress. But I don't, at the risk of sounding like a better old bloke, but for me, the improvements it still has to be reasonable for me to believe it against the backdrop. Again, we don't need to get into all this, but against the backdrop of the issues we have within athletics and the history of doping, and especially with, it can't go without mentioning that there's so many, scores and scores of Kenyan athletes who, a lot of them have got similar training partners, coaches and stuff. So when they're lopping half a minute off records, or they're taking on records where somebody's going to potentially take 8 seconds off a mile record, the first thing that comes into my mind is, well, if they do it, there's no way they're doing that. So she didn't. I'm not saying anything to do with them two athletes in particular, but for me, it was if I watched that and they've gone and run 3:59, in my head, there's no way they were doing that without wearing some sort of clown propeller shoes and taking a load of drugs, because the improvement would be too big. So, but maybe that's something. I mean, we are unfiltered, but maybe that's a few different issues blended into one that I couldn't get that excited about that particular. I did watch it, but I couldn't get that excited about it on the basis of they came across so confident that we're going to do it, and I was like, if you do that, there's no way you've done that legitimately. So yeah, I guess some people will probably try to cancel me for saying that, but it's just true.
Wow.
That was
no, mate, Parsi, you speak your mind.
Yeah, but only because we want athletics to be. Yeah, but we love athletics and we want it. We want it to be good. So it would be okay, let's put another totally different event out there. What if they were Nike's going to do breaking 3 meters for the high jump, breaking 3 meters, and they build it all up for Barsham or whatever. And he just comes back on some moon springs and just bounces over 3 meters. You're like, well, that's not really high jump anymore.
But would you watch it?
Well,
would you watch the highlights?
I would be intrigued to see what they and I would go.
So this is the thing, right?
But I would watch it and go, but that's just not athletics. So if that is now that version of her high jump, I'm not that engaged with it.
Yeah. It's smart marketing from them.
That's it. Yeah. All them athletes decked out in Nike and Nike brand all over the shop.
It was a big.
Yeah. And do you know what? That's the game now.
If I was in Paris, I would have went to watch it purely because, like I said, it's the hopes there. Not saying it would have happened, but the hopes there that it would happen, and also it looked like it was just a pretty cool.
They had some mint pacemakers, they had some mint names down for there.
It was
Craig Engels.
Yeah, he's
Boyle, absolute Boyle in
I know I don't want to sound like a broken record too much, but I wish they hadn't done it as a mile. I wish they'd just done it as a 1500. And when she's so much better than everybody else at the minute, let's see how fast we can get her. With all this with the male pacemakers and all that, if they'd done all of it as a 1500 and she'd ran 3:47, 3:46, I would have been all for her, just seeing what the level was. But if they'd gone, by the way, we want to see if she can break 3:40, and then I would have been the same with that whole sub 4 for a mile. It would have just been too far for me.
Yeah. Is there any talking about just barriers in general in the sport time wise, is there any records that are close to a barrier? So I mentioned the 2-hour marathon on the road for the men. Is there any other world records that jump out to you guys that you think, I could see that going? I mean, obviously we've had 14 minutes for 5k go by Beatrice Chibet recently. So that was I guess that is one. Well, that is one that's gone. Is there any that sort of spring out to either of you that think, maybe that barrier could go plus that world record? I
think within the whole of athletics, the one that is always a frustration is the pole vault, because I do enjoy it. It is a spectacle, but I loved watching Bobka when he was at his pomp, and now you've got Mondo at his pomp, and you just know that they've got such a bigger jump in them. but because they get a payday every time they put 1 centimetre onto the world record, they don't do it. So I wish we knew how high they could go. So if it was like, we're only paying the world record in 5 centimetre increments now, then you would get to see, can you get to like 550, 560? Because you see these graphics about where the high point is. So I would like to see, could he get over like 650? Because they would talk about Bubka had that in him, or 640 or whatever. So yeah, I want to see how high he could go, but you're not going to do it unless they incentivize it enough.
Yeah.
I think the men's 1500. I don't think it's going to score this year. I heard that Dathan Ritzenheim had said that he thinks that it will go this year.
I've heard that. I don't think it will.
I think it will go in the next Olympic cycle, though. Yeah. I think it will. Yeah. I think had Jakob stayed injury free, good chance he could have took it. I think that he would have a very good chance. But I think for him to go under it, I mean, he almost did it in Monaco last year, and I think if the shape he was in the indoors, if he carried that through, which we almost did, obviously he's had a flare up with his Achilles now, but I think there will come a point where he will have a clean run through, and I think they need to get one of his good competitors, a couple of them, to pace him. Maybe Nike could do that. The break, a 1500 meter project. That would be really cool to watch.
That'd be cool.
But then again, I think he would probably want that to have that in an authentic event. But you could still have that.
I still think they should make it authentic. The difference with the women's to the men's is you can put male pacemakers in who can actually give her that pull around, whereas there's not as many female athletes who could actually physically take her that far. Whereas in the men's, you couldn't do that without rotating pacemakers.
You could probably. I think you could possibly get someone to go to 200, 250 to go, 200 to go, if you had the right people. So like say Nike paid some of their athletes to like Laros or they had like they probably need like 3 pacemakers.
Well, they could definitely get to 1200.
They could get to 1200, and I think if he can get him round to because in Monaco, I think the guy got to the belt.
Right.
But I think he was slowing down because I remember Jakob was like right up, and then this athlete who took him there was a very good athlete as well. That would be the one that I want to see. I would be excited to see go. But no Monaco 15 this year.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Which one you reckoning then, Big Red? Before we wrap up.
Like I mentioned, I think for me the marathon, the 2-hour marathon. Yeah, I think we could see that in the next few years.
Yeah. It would be good. Probably Berlin will probably do it if anywhere. But thank you again for joining us on what was a hot, unfiltered episode. So thanks to Rich and Cameron. And thanks to everybody who's tuned in. Remember to give us the likes, the comments, the shares, send us messages and get entering the top flight races. And we'll see you next time.